Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. In this episode, you will hear part one of my conversation with Katie Lester, a senior in the Bachelor's of Social Work program at the University of Alaska Anchorage and a scholarship recipient at the National Federation of the Blind Scholarship Program. More links and information about today's conversation can be found on Digication's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Full episodes of Digication Scholars Conversations can be found on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. My guest today is Katie Lester, a senior in the Bachelor of Social Work program at the University of Alaska Anchorage. Katie is a scholarship recipient at the National Federation of the Blind Scholarship Program. Katie was one of 30 scholarship recipients, and her award was specifically for academic excellence and service to the community. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. And
the honor and the pleasure is all mine. Katie, thank you again for agreeing to come and speak with me. I am so excited about this. We have known each other for a few years now. Is that right? A couple of years, maybe?
Almost, yeah. A little over a year.
Definitely over a year, I think, at this point. And we were introduced by our mutual friend and colleague, Paul Wasco, who runs ePortfolios at University of Alaska Anchorage.
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting journey, and it's been nice to be able to work with you and get to know you and work with Paul. It's been, lots of new things and learning, and it's just been a great time.
I agree. I think it's been fantastic. We'll dig into that a little bit more. Before we do that, why don't we give people a little bit of context? So why don't you tell me a little bit about your story? Now, for folks who haven't figured it out at this point, Katie, you lost your vision a few years ago. And do you want to just, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up being at University of Alaska Anchorage?
Yeah, thanks. So you're right, I lost it a few years ago. My vision, I grew up just always normally every year going to the eye doctor as everyone else, but upgrading my glasses. And one time it turned out that the doctor decided that I'm past that point, and so I got a awakening call of potentially being losing my vision. And so in 2018, I lost my vision. I went from not even being close to being legally blind to, by the end of the year, I had 2 feet of visual recognition. And after that, it's just steadily declined. So I now have about, I'd say 4 to 6 inches. So I typically go off of vocal recognition now more than anything else. I use color contrast and have some light sensitivity, hence the sunglasses that I'm wearing. But it's been an interesting journey in doing that. It's been, quick emotions, up and down, rapids, but it reminded me to stop and look at what I really wanted for life, what I wanted to do, what mattered. It reminded me to not take anything for granted, which was a big thing. I've had loss in the past and different things, but when you get so busy and everything going on, you tend to forget. And I was working quite a bit, and if I wasn't working or volunteering, I was, sleeping or doing some different things. So it made me stop and think of what I've done in the past, what kind of jobs, and what I really want to do. So, and that brought me to I've always enjoyed helping others in any way I can. And instead of going back to work and where I wanted to, I received an opportunity through the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation here in Alaska to go back to school. And so I chose a School of Social Work because there are so many different avenues that I can go in different directions and helps a lot of people with a variety of different information and knowledge that I gained through the schooling. And so that's where I'm at now.
Well, your story, I've heard it before, but every time I hear it, it's just so inspirational. I couldn't imagine. I think that when people say don't take things for granted, it really, for you, it was like, it feels like a moment's notice that suddenly you'd had vision and then you don't.
Yeah, it's something interesting. I used to call myself a klutz growing up. A lot of people tripping and falling and different things. And when I started to lose the vision, it really came to like higher attention, that, I can't see the height and depth perception of the sidewalk or where a stair was. And then once I learned how to navigate non-visually through the Alaska Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired, it was like a huge awakening. Because that was one of the big things of losing your sight. It's like another grieving, like a loss of part of who you are or what you've known. I lost my vision in my 30s, so going 30 years with sight and then all of a sudden not having it is quite a shock and quite a change.
I cannot even start to imagine what that must be like. It must hit you like a rock. And now you have, I want to dig a little deeper into that and how you make that transition. I'd imagine, obviously, there is quite a lot that you had to transition on a sort of day-to-day basis, how to get around. I know that you, by now, have mastered the use of, various instruments, including, I know that you have a beautiful dog as well who helps you.
Yeah, I have my first guide dog, Dozer. He is a black Labrador retriever, and he's 4.5. He'll be 5 in January. And I got him and graduated in February of 2020 from Guiding Eyes for the Blind, based in Yorktown Heights, New York. And he's been a huge, not just for mobility and a tool to navigate non-visually, but it's like a best friend that gets to go everywhere with you. And when I got him just before the pandemic, and it just made a huge difference because we were living in Seward, Alaska, and just on the outskirts of town, so there was a lot more isolation because of the pandemic, and it made a huge difference of having him with me too.
Yeah, that's amazing. He went from New York to Alaska to come and help you. What a wonderful. I felt like that's a whole story by itself.
It is.
I know that one of the things that got us connected is because of your involvement with social work at University of Alaska, and you use ePortfolios for part of the program, and as such, I know Paul and I have for a long time, and along with many other partners, you couldn't be more grateful, really, along in the higher education sort of circle. There are really so many people in this, circle who care a lot about accessibility and making sure that everyone has a chance to do, to learn and to have, have access. And Paul, I think, came to me and said, "Hey, I just started working with this student. Her name's Katie, and she's amazing. And she has been using Digication with the screen reader, and she has some feedback for you." I think that's how it started.
I'm sure. And then more of probably music. This doesn't work.
Yeah, right. And I remember having that conversation with Paul, and I had said, just like most people have conversations, at least, this was, I don't know, that must have been 2020, 21, maybe
2021.
Yeah, something like that. And I want to say that, for folks who might be hopefully folks who, if ever, will listen to this 10 years later, the landscape will be completely different. But in this, in at this current time, I feel like that people experience, a few different types of experiences in your situation. They either go, they are in a school, they're in a college, and they go to their teacher or their professor and say, well, I use a screen reader. You are telling me to do some project. It's not accessible. I couldn't do it. And either the professor kind of goes, well, either don't worry about it, or you can do something else instead. Sort of don't worry about it. I think that it all, usually it really comes from a good place. But in my mind, that's really not great, because all it did is to take you away from the opportunity. And then there are ones that are perhaps, more willing to work with that, and they might say, all right, well, you can go and work with so-and-so, or go to speak with this department. It might be someone like Paul, if they knew someone who's, sort of willing to bat for you, and that, or it might be an accessibility, expert or a service or something along those kind of lines. And then they might be able to help you. But even then, the way that they can help you, sometimes they don't really know what experience you are really having, because they're not the ones doing the actual work and trying to upload their work and trying to, create something for people to see. And so when Paul told me that, well, Katie's very interested in really having the experience of building the portfolios, and she would find this ability to do reflections and put up her work, etc., would be valuable as a learning experience. And I said, well, I would love to meet her. And that's how I think we got introduced. And then I think that we started talking, and you had shown me where you had gotten stuck, and then we had started working together. And I think we've had several calls, well, probably a big bunch of calls since then. And then we have learned so much from your experience. We would sit together and figure out exactly what keyboard shortcuts you might be using, whether you're using an arrow key, a tab key, some modifying keys, using your screen readers, and your screen reader may have some specific, features, etc. And then we had brought in some other experts to come in and look at it together. And that's just been fantastic. And I couldn't thank you enough, Katie, for sharing that experience. Because of your patience, we had learned so much from it that we were able to recreate and sort of completely recreate the experience of someone, or the experience for people who might be using a screen reader to access Digication.
Yeah, I'm really glad I can help and everything, but it makes a difference, the fact that you were willing to listen and see what my troubles were and what it was really having difficulties and wanting to help and make that change and adjustments, to where most people tend to, oh, you can help with this person or have someone, there's applications that you can have someone else help you with it. But when you're able to do it on your own completely, it's like, it makes a huge difference. And it's like being able to grow up and do your own laundry because you have sight, and then all of a sudden you learn how to do your own laundry or clean your own house again. It's like, it's like the independence. It's like, I can do this, and if I can do this, I can do anything.
I love what you just said there, and I think that there are, I really hope that these kind of conversations that we're having is going to allow for others, whether they are advocates, for those who have special needs, or those who have special needs and need, would like to have more access to more accessible tools and technologies and services, is to take away from that. It is not enough. And I'll tell you that before we met, I can tell you that, we could claim that our product was accessible in that it's compliant to the terms. It's compliant to the, requirements in terms of the black and whites on paper. Technically, if you really want to tab, 100 times, you can get to that spot on the page and do what you need. But it's not, being compliant isn't really being empathetic to your experience, is it?
No, it's makes a difference when you could navigate well. You can really use, as they use the term, usability, to actually use and do it timely and efficiently as anybody else. Makes a huge difference than just saying, yeah, I went through a computer and it complies with the compliance of what the rules and the regulations are for state and federal. But when you can actually truly use it and do it quickly and efficiently, it makes, you're more comfortable, you're more willing to continue and work with the product or work with anything. But it's also to where it gives you that hope and encouragement and independence to where you can just feel professional, or not just like successful of, yeah, I managed to do it, but it took me 5 hours, versus, yeah, I can do that. Give me a couple minutes and let's put this up.
And I would say that, and I don't know, and again, hopefully people that might listen to this will find that it's possible. That extra layer of support can exist, and it's not that hard from a tool builder standpoint. What was the hardest was to know what the problems were. Once we know what they were, we were able to solve them relatively easily. I don't want to say it's super easy, but once we know what the problems were, then we can go, oh, okay, well, there were so many low-hanging fruits. We were able to go, well, let's knock this part out, that part out. It would cut down her time by like 50% by changing 2 lines of code. We just didn't know what they were, right? But to get to that, we have to listen. And that's, I think, really the key, isn't it?
Yes. And I think it goes for both sides, me listening to the challenges you face on the building side of adjusting and creating, because I don't have that knowledge and expertise on how to build and create that to what it takes for you to make those changes. And for you, when you listen, okay, this is where she's struggling. What's the best way to navigate and help her succeed? And as well as how can we do this and still keep what we're looking for,
Well, I wanted to just add that it, as an advocate, perhaps in this case as an advocate for other software technology providers, that it is certainly one thing, and there are a lot of companies and professional services out there that you can pay money for. We've done that as well to teach you what by the letters of the regulations, how things are supposed to be and what the requirements are, and you can come up with a wonderful VPAT document that sort of covers your positions. Like, we do have the ability to do this. We do have the ability to do this. Because it's sort of a black and white thing. You can just sort of say, we provided access to it. But like you said, usability is a completely different thing. And I think that extra step of being able to sit beside someone and say, look, I just want you to show me how you use it. And then you observe, and you just can learn so much from it. And to be honest, I think that it makes not just, folks with, using screen readers to access our product, but non-screen reader users, whether or not you have any special needs, it's improved everyone's experiences. And we now are learning so much more about other types of needs that people have. There are people who have, ADHD, short-term memory even. And I was, talking to someone about that, and they said, look, the way that you label each and every one of your drop-downs is going to matter, because if that label goes away, someone that doesn't have a long enough term memory may not remember why they clicked on it in the first place. So they have a different problem that you do, right, Katie?
Yeah, it's very interesting in how a label and how it's labeled makes a difference in someone's ability to use and navigate and successfully complete a task that they're trying to do.
So I think that I argue that it's really better for everyone, really. But there is this, I think there is a strange, well, I guess it's not strange if you look at sort of how capitalism works, in that a lot of, companies or vendors or, tool creators, they sort of have this idea that, most of our customers are not, or don't have this special need, but it could take us, a dramatically, longer to build it like this, and therefore we opt not to. I think that I think it's, at this point, it's something that you opt to do, versus, opting not to do.
Yeah, it's those choices and how much time and effort and things that you want to put into it. But I know I probably mentioned this before, but I'm sure Paul has told you too, that when you guys labeled those color schemes, said I was just ecstatic. It's like I sent him a text message as soon as I heard it for the first time, because it made a huge difference. It's not just random numbers to me. It's fire engine red, or
all right, we're going to tell people what this. We're going to tell people what this means, because I think this is a really interesting example. So you had at some point, so in Digication, there are lots of places where you can choose custom colors for things. It could be a background, it could be the font color, it could be, all kinds of stuff. And very, almost very predictably, we had a place for you to pick colors. And of course, if you can see the colors, you can just simply, point to it and click on it, and that's it. And once you've clicked on it, the results would tell you that you have picked the color 00FFDD, right? It would be something like that. And which, of course, doesn't mean anything to you or anyone else for that matter. But from a programming standpoint, that's the color code. That's the exact color code that you picked. But it doesn't matter, right? I think because you couldn't see it, you couldn't possibly tell what that means. And I remember talking to someone, and it wasn't about this. As I was, doing research on, how can we make this color more accessible to you? And I read someone on like an online forum that just said, well, if they're blind, they don't need to know the color because they can see the color. And I'm thinking, wow, that is absolutely, absolutely terrible. And as if color doesn't exist because you couldn't see it.
So, yeah, that is can definitely get some crazy responses.
Yeah, as if it's no longer a tool for you to express yourself. Is as if it no longer matters to you, as if, like color is meaningless. And so anyway, for us though, we were going through that journey of trying to figure out what to do. And then we figured out how to translate each and every single one of those code to, like you were saying, fire engine red, fiery red, etc.
Guest Katie Lester and host Jeff Yan spoke about the experience of using a screen reader to select colors in a Digication ePortfolio. We would like to take this opportunity to briefly share with you what this experience sounds like when using a screen reader. In this next clip, Katie kindly steps through the ePortfolio editing view in Digication to choose one of her favorite background colors.
Heading level 4 button, color button. Color button menu, collapse space, colors 03A9F4, light salmon pink button, fire opal button, CG red button, fire engine red carnelian button, rosso corsa linen button, apricot button, atomic tangerine, giant's orange button, flame button, vermilion button, rust button, very pale yellow button, lemon yellow button, corn button, banana yellow button, enter color button menu.
Yeah, there is one, a banana yellow or a sunlight yellow. It's just like, it puts a good laugh. Which a side benefit, is like with all the, emotions running through, and maybe you've had a rough day, you're going through them, and, if you get a laugh out of it, it makes it even better.
Brought a little bit of joy to you, but I think that this, from just an expression standpoint, though, just knowing it's a banana yellow allows you to just go, that's the feel I'm looking for, right?
Hello.
And that's great. And I think that that's exactly the type of things that we should be talking about. And by the way, and I'm not sure, maybe it is in the in the regulations, but I really don't even know that you're supposed to, label each color or name each one. But I don't know if it is. But better experts in the regulations can probably tell us. But the idea of something like this need to be translated to everything that we do, right? Because it's not just the color; it's about the placement of things, the order in which things are being displayed to you, jump from one to another, and so on. This concludes part 1 of our conversation. To hear part 2, be sure to subscribe to Digication Scholars Conversations on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Digication Scholars Conversations is brought to you by Digication, a technology platform powering the most innovative ePortfolio programs in K-12 and higher education. Our website can be found at digication.com. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thanks for tuning in.